Friends, we have discussed in fair detail, not great detail, but fair detail, the landscape of India. What according to you, is the central theme of our discussion? What has been the central theme of our discussion about India's landscape? Himalaya is one feature. Talking of the keynote or the theme note of our discussion about landscape, or trying to understand the landscape of India. Somebody said biodiversity.
Beauty and variation.
A little louder. A likeness to heaven. Some people, some more ideas about it.
So basically we discussed that how the Indian biodiversity was very rich around 2-3 decades back, and how many of the things are lost over the 20 or 30 years.
Just 20-30 years. It's a long story.
Around 100 years.
20-30 years, the speed is very high, but process of destruction has been longer. What is the greatest harm done to India's landscape in the last 100 years, 150 years, 200 years? What is that keynote which has been disrupted? What has been disrupted?
River system, forest.
River system closed. We are just closed. You see not only underground water system, drainage. Primarily, you see, what has made India that India is? How come that it is India? What is the significance? What is this rich biodiversity? What is this 50 biospheres? How they have been constituted? What constitutes the landscape of India? How does it evolve? See the whole, I feel quite at loss. I don't know how to. See, the central theme was drainage. Are you familiar with the word sacred? What does it denote? Sacred. Just find out what are the opposites of sacred and synonyms and antonyms. Can you find out on this? No. Anybody? What is the opposite of sacred? Desecrate. Profane. Would profane be opposite of sacred? Why should something be sacred? What does sacred mean? Why this simple fact has not registered? I want to understand that the central theme of India's landscape is drainage. We have a coastline, we have mainlands, we have some plateaus, we have, what is the central idea of, what have we talking about all these days? We began with Himalayas, went up to the coastline. Again and again we have been repeating that there is a scientific view that not a drop should be allowed to flow into the seas. Every drop must be utilized, and there is a vernacular wisdom that water must flow to the seas. We discussed Kutch, how landscape of Kutch has been disrupted, what has happened to grasslands or the habitat of flamingos. Sacred are those ideas which you generally do not violate. Sacred is something that you believe in, that you preserve, that you conserve, that you honor, that you respect. Indian civilization throughout history, prehistory, had one central theme, that India's drainage is a sacred aspect of our landscape. It's the basic factor of evolution of India, if it has evolved, if it is not God given, if it is not made by nature in one stroke, and if it has evolved, then drainage is the primary source of evolution of India, the entire landscape. Soils have been brought, many things happen because of drainage, not only soils, but many other things. Moisture regimes are controlled by drainage. One of you during the Vivas asked me that how come atmosphere is also purified? Who was he? Is he here? No? One of you asked this question.
He's not here.
Huh? He's not here. Can anybody guess how flowing water purifies atmosphere? No? Do you have at least this idea that when you go near water, atmosphere is refreshing?
Yes, yes.
You go near any water point, you will find that atmosphere is quite refreshing. Why?
It dissipates oxygen from
Little louder.
flowing water, because you told us some phenomena because of which it dissipates oxygen, because of which when the air flows, the whole oxygen it purifies the atmosphere.
You see, in any case, water is evaporating all the time, moisture is evaporating all the time. Whether it is in flow or it is stationary or whatever is the situation, variation of temperature is taking place, and due to variation in temperature and openness to the surface, some evaporation is all the time taking place. And what happens when evaporation takes place? Water vapors, moisture vapors go into the atmosphere. And if there is any pollution in the air, pollution in the atmosphere, what will this moisture do? This moisture will absorb that impurity and sink down again, go to the water again, and again vapors would rise and again atmosphere would be purified. And in any case, when water is flowing, when kinetic energy is very high, the vaporization process is also very high, and when vaporization process is very high, atmosphere is also getting a lot of oxygen. Whatever depletions have come, whatever impurities have come, they are getting washed away, washed down into the river system, into the drainage system. So, not only water does act as a self-purificatory. See, do we remember Punaram's story?
Yeah.
He said, water is God for what reasons? How many reasons he described? What is Punaram's story in any case?
So he said that it's water purifies the atmosphere.
He didn't say that. He said it becomes available. It purifies itself and becomes available. He didn't say that it purifies atmosphere. That is our surmise. He only said that water is a self-purificatory. Whatever dirt, whatever pollution, whatever impurity you wash into it, it does not become angry. It doesn't lose its temper. It follows its cycle, and after the end of the cycle, it is once again available as pure water, as refreshing water, as life-giving water. Now, water has these two major salient features. There may be more, but in any case, two major salient features. Water is self-purificatory. It has a quality that it purifies itself. It follows a cycle and it purifies itself. That is one quality of water. Now, this quality of water is related to a physical feature of water. What physical feature of water that is?
Universal solvent. Universal solvent.
Universal
Solvent.
Solvent.
It must find its level, it flows. You keep it at any level, it will flow to its own level. It flows to the level that is water level. You cannot hold it anywhere. If it is allowed freedom, it will flow down. It has a pressure. All things have pressure. It has a gravity. All things have gravity. All physical objects have gravity. But by that gravity, it has also a quality that it continues to flow. And because of that, it will find some way. It must flow. It can find some passage. If it is held in a place, it will try to seep in. If it is allowed to flow, it will flow down to the seas. So water has a tendency to flow down. Now this tendency to flow, tendency to seep in, this tendency is related to the quality that we are talking of self-purification. Self-purification is directly related to the quality of water finding its own level, its quality of its flow. What does it do by flow? It interacts with the atmosphere, it interacts with oxygen. So there is a very important saying about water. I had told you water finds its own level 1, It is a multi-layered proverb that water finds its own level, and flowing water is, there is a saying in Hindi, I want you to recall it. Have you heard of Behta Pani Nirmala? No? Nobody has heard of this phrase in Hindi? That flowing water is pure water? मामूली हिंदी भी नहीं पढ़ी आप लोगों ने? Some 7th 8th standard Hindi, this बहता पानी निर्मला, रमता योगी बहता पानी निर्मला. Not familiar with this phrase? In any case, this is a very important phrase that behta pani nirmala. By all flowing water is pure water. Water becomes pure, self-purificatory. So, what I am trying to derive at by relating to these two things, that water has a nature to flow down, and water has a quality of self-purification. Now these two things are related. What does it mean? What is this relationship? You don't understand the real connectivity. Is there a connectivity between these two things? Or you are not sure about the connectivity between these two things? Water flows to its own level, one. Water has a self-purificatory quality. Are these two things connected or not? No, it is not clear. भाई simple बात है, very simple statement I am making, that when water flows down, because during this kinetic energy, it is interacting with the atmosphere, and because it is interacting with the atmosphere, it is purifying itself by oxygenation. No? Even now it is not clear? Huh? This simple connectivity. Now, both are scientific statements. Water has a self-purificatory quality about itself, and that water flows to its own level, water's own level. Now these two simple scientific facts are there. You can verify them from some science book. Both these statements are there, and they are connected. And both these proverbs also speak of some philosophy of life. When we say about a man that he is likely to find his own level, or in somebody's context, that finally he will find it. Finally water finds its own level. If we are saying it in somebody's context, what does it mean? No? No idea? It simply means that man didn't deserve the kind of height that he has achieved, and he will fall down. He will come to his own level. And when we say Baheta Pani, Ramta Yogi Baheta Pani Nirmala, a flowing water, and a saint who doesn't have a abode, who is all the time moving. In any case, leave philosophy. Philosophy is beyond you, but you will leave the philosophy part of it. though it's a simple statement, it's a simple philosophy that, well, water has a self-purificatory quality, that's why it is equivalent to God. That's why it refreshes us. That's why it gives us the sense of purification. It gives us the sense of washing down. It gives us the sense of, freshening, refreshment. Because this is the inner quality of water. And this quality is directly related to the physical feature that water has to flow. And by flow, even stationary water flows. How does stationary water flows?
Because of the temperature difference. Because of the surface temperature and
That is vaporization.
Seeping.
Waves, air. See, atmosphere is not stationary. Even when we say if there is no air, it doesn't mean that the atmosphere is stationary. Atmosphere at no point of time is stationary. It has some movement all the time. And the movement of the atmosphere is all the time affecting waters which are enclosed in some water body. So even if you keep a little water, this glass is too small, but if it has a little more space, larger surface, then it will also be affected by whatever little wind is flowing, whatever little air is flowing. So even stationary water flows, and by that flowing quality, water which is enclosed in tanks also purifies itself, and these two qualities are related. And science should be about understanding the relationship between physical features, physical qualities, and whatever other qualities a particular matter has. Science should be a study of the nature in this manner that we can understand the interconnectivity between one aspect of a particular matter and other aspects that are there. Now this much about this connectivity and relationship. The important thing that I wanted to discuss with you is that in the context of India landscape, drainage is sacred. Why? Why drainage should be considered sacred? What is the primary habitat? Pardon?
human.
Human lives in the habitat. What is the primary habitat? Habitat is constructed on what? Habitat is raised on what? Earth, soil. And how India soils are made? What?
Through the drainage system.
Through the drainage. Drainage is the constituent factor of India habitat. India, that is a habitat, is primarily raised by drainage. That's why drainage is considered, or drainage is said to be, or drainage was always a sacred belief. People believed in drainage. No drainage was allowed to be obstructed. Can you tell me something important? How people prevented it? How people protected it? What was the cultural chore is the word, C-H-O-R-E, chore is the word. What was the cultural chore, or what was the cultural practice? Let us make it simpler. What was the cultural practice which made it essential, which preserved which helped people conserve the drainage of India? Ghat, of course. But what was the important cultural practice that was observed by which the, of course it was done, that practice was observed at some ghat. What is the significance of Ganges in India's life? Ordinary Indian, leave alone IIT educated people and other people who have put in ordinary for ordinary Indian. Ganga, why Ganga is Mata? Why Ganga is, of course, Ganga Mata refers to this drainage, this sacredness of this drainage. Actual mother is Ganga, not even the habitat. Because Ganga is creating the major habitat of India. That's why it's called Ganga Mata. But what is the cultural practice by which Indians could preserve the drainage system for hundreds of thousands of years? Not just 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 millenniums, but ever since these rivers were there until about 200 years ago. Very little disturbance you will find, very little experimentation you will find with India's drainage. If you go into the history, those of you who are studying some civil engineering, they must at least look into the history of Indian drainage and into soil science if they are studying some soil science, that how soils are made and what was very important in India, how Indian soils were made. We can find out. But leave alone, leave all that. Have you not heard that people are taken for their last rites to Ganga? Or whatever remains are there have to be washed in Ganga? And what is that? What does it more? What more it refers to? Are you familiar with this Hindu practice? That last remains after burning the dead body, the last remains should be taken to a river. If not Ganga, if possible Ganga, but if Ganga is not possible, to river. And what should be the quality of this river? The quality of this river has to be that there is no obstruction on its path. It flows from its source to its final level unobstructed. That was the cultural practice which Hindus observed, which people who lived here observed very strictly. That for last rites you go to a river so that whatever remains are there will flow back, will be used for flowing water. Of course, there are many things, and now there would be many people who would narrate many types of stories that phosphate does this or phosphate does that, but that is not very relevant. The relevant point is that Indians primarily considered their drainage a very sacred aspect of human life, a very sacred aspect of the natural making of India, and this was unviolable. It was not violable. Nobody could build dams, nobody could obstruct water. At the most, somebody could divert a little water and bring it back to the main river. I told you, nobody is here from the hills. Koi Garhwali, Himachali. You are from there. Have you heard of Guls? Gul, G-H-U-L. I had mentioned this word. If you are attentive in these lectures, then also you would know what is a Gul. You see, a river is flowing. Somebody has fields here. It is not possible to lift water from here to here. So what he does is, he builds a small channel and brings this channel along the gradient to his field. He irrigates his field. Fields are in steps. step fields are there in the hills. So these fields are irrigated, and this water is again put back into the, whatever drainage is there, that is put back into the river system. This is good. So this is minor diversion. For usage you could do that, minor diversions could be taken, but again put back into the river system. So, so that drainage is not obstructed. Main flow of the drainage is sacred and it should not be obstructed. This was a very definite cultural belief of the people of India. But these beliefs started, it was shaken during the Islamic period also, and then finally British had absolutely no regard. Of course, the people who came from Arab, Iran, or further northwest, they came here to settle down. And because they came here to settle down, they tried to learn about the landscape, they tried to understand what landscaping is and what should be done. I did tell you one example. A canal was used. Who dug up that canal? I mentioned this here. Shahjahan, the second. First canal was dug by Shahjahan, did the second one. What was the course of that first canal? I told you all this. From Shivaliks to where? Where Firozpur is. Does Firozpur sound some historical name in your? No. Firoz Tughlaq. You have not heard of him? So during his times, a canal was attempted in Punjab region, and from Shivalik foothills to about Firozpur, a distance of about 160 kilometers or 200 kilometers. It used to be called a 100-mile canal. And this was used for a long time, and then people found that no, canal business is not good for India, not good for our soils. Our soils should be on the basis of minimal artificial irrigation, very minimum artificial irrigation. That's how, they learned their first lesson. Second lesson, the first lesson, they remembered. Whatever experience they had from the first canal, second time they built a canal, they did not irrigate any fields. They irrigated only orchards near Delhi and put back the entire water. The entire drainage system was so organized that the entire Aravalli hills, the entire drainage of Aravalli hills and whatever irrigation in the orchard area was organized was taken to the river. That was the lesson that we learned from our first experience of the canal. Before that, if we had canals or not, there is not much known. In earlier times also there have been any canals or not, if there was any experience or not. But people observed this very, very religiously, that no river should be dammed. Canals cannot be built without damming, because water has to be lifted a little at least, and for lifting the water, the simplest thing is that you build a barrage, and from that barrage you divert this water.